Spring 1943, an American prisoner of war camp mess hall. Men of the Afrika Korps, weeks off the boat from the North African front, shuffled forward. The line moved past steel counters. Each man took a metal tray. On it, unexpected plenty, thick slices of soft white bread, a scoop of butter, a generous cut of meat, and coffee steaming from steel urns. There was sugar for the coffee. These were soldiers of the Third Reich. For years, Nazi propaganda had pounded one message: America was starving, its people desperate. They expected brutality and hunger. Instead, this. Several of the new arrivals quietly pushed the white bread to the far edge of their trays. They were convinced it was cake, a special holiday confection, saved for some celebration they hadn't been told about. The weight of the loaded tray was unfamiliar. The low murmur of men counting portions filled the hall. Within weeks, these same prisoners would file a formal complaint about this food. What happened next was the part they never expected. These were the first waves of Afrika Korps men. They had arrived from Tunisia, their recent past marked by months of shrinking desert rations. The Atlantic crossing had been a grim, anxious blur. The propaganda they'd ingested had painted America as blockaded, starving, ruthless to its prisoners. Many carried the deep, ingrained fear of brutal interrogation or outright starvation. But instead, they disembarked into a massive, organized machine. By 1946, over 400,000 German soldiers would be held in hundreds of camps across nearly every American state. The U.S. followed the 1929 Geneva Convention to the letter. Prisoners were entitled to rations equal to American garrison troops, the same food as GIs stationed at home. For men trained in the rigid Wehrmacht, the very idea of open complaint was alien. Yet the Geneva rules mandated an elected compound spokesman. Grievances could be raised and would be. Letters home, attempting to describe this plenty, would be heavily censored. Families in Germany, themselves facing increasing scarcity, simply could not believe such stories. The prisoners themselves, conditioned by their own nation's lies, questioned the sheer scale of it all. This astonishing abundance, they suspected, had to be a staged trick, a temporary charade. In American mess halls, long tables filled with metal trays. The standard fare included a bright, glistening side dish, sweet corn, golden kernels often swimming in butter, a common American vegetable. But in Germany, maize was not for human consumption. It was livestock feed. You poured it into a pig trough. A prisoner, somewhere in Kansas, stares at his plate. He sees the unexpected yellow. He tastes the sweetness. The unfamiliar texture, mushy and strange. An insult delivered on a tray, Schweinefutter, pig food. This silent affront repeats. Camp after camp, across the vast network of U.S. compounds, the record repeats the same complaint. Men who had been raised in a system where complaining to authority, especially foreign authority, was dangerous, even fatal, still felt compelled to speak. They say it anyway. Through the Geneva Convention mandated spokesman, an elected representative in each camp. They present the grievance. They brace for reprimand, for solitary confinement, for something worse. They stand ready for punishment, but punishment does not come. Instead, a practical bureaucratic response. The complaints are logged meticulously. Commandants review the records. Menus are adjusted. The sweet corn is swapped for another vegetable, or its portion drastically reduced. The army listens. Then the larger answer. The U.S. Army begins handing the kitchens over. German prisoners take command of the mess halls. German cooks, many of them former soldiers, prepare the meals. They are given American provisions, but allowed to cook in their own style. Crucially, American ovens now bake dark, familiar bread. Camps procure rye flour from local mills. POW bakers craft the dense, hearty loaves their countrymen know and crave. The reversal is absolute. Men who had crossed an ocean expecting starvation, ready for brutality and deprivation, now gather in the mess hall. They are arguing not about survival, but about the precise seasoning of their soup. They debate the texture of their gravy, and astonishingly, they are winning these arguments. Their tastes are catered to, their preferences honored. It is a world turned upside down. They waited. Many of these German soldiers, still steeped in a decade of Goebbels's rhetoric, remained deeply suspicious. They expected the generous provisions, the propaganda rations, to disappear. They anticipated the true American hunger, a myth drilled into them, to finally materialize. This abundance, they believed, was a temporary show, a trick, but the cut never came. Days bled into weeks, weeks stretched into months. The soft white bread, the item so often mistaken for cake in those early days, kept appearing. A consistent, everyday reality, its sweetness no longer a surprise, its availability no longer in doubt. Instead, something else began to accumulate, on the prisoners themselves. Across camp after camp, records showed a striking pattern. Men gained weight, not just a few pounds. Many put on 10, even 15 pounds in captivity. These were not the emaciated victims their propaganda predicted. They were growing healthier, often heavier than they had been in years. Beyond the mess hall, another economy thrived. Prisoners earned 80 cents a day in canteen scrip for their contract labor. This scrip bought small luxuries, items that were scarce or unobtainable in wartime Germany. Cigarettes were popular, shaving cream, even bottles of 2% beer, a mild brew but real beer. Inside the wire, many compounds cultivated their own vegetable gardens, rows of tomatoes and beans. These plots, tended by the prisoners, added fresh produce to already ample mess hall provisions. Hans Weaker, held at Fort Robinson, Nebraska, recalled his time with stark simplicity. The food was excellent, he stated. His memory, like so many others, contradicted everything he'd been taught. Letters from the camps, censored but still vivid, described full stomachs, regular servings of meat, even butter. But families in Germany, battered by air raids and shrinking rations, found these accounts impossible to believe. They dismissed them as fantasy, or worried their sons and husbands were being coerced. How could such abundance exist in an America portrayed as starving? Every single believable meal, each consistent ration served, each pound gained by a healthy man, every small purchase with real scrip. These small, mundane realities were more than just provisions. They were a slow, quiet assault, a persistent crack in 12 years of relentless, all-consuming propaganda. A truth too simple, too tangible to ignore forever. But the context for this generosity held a brutal mirror, a stark, undeniable contrast. Germany starved Soviet prisoners by the million. Its own camps kept Allied POWs perpetually hungry. Yet here, it's captured soldiers in American hands. By international law, ate like American garrison troops. This disparity became visible at home. From 1944, the American press attacked the coddling of Nazis. Headlines questioned the cost. Why did these men eat better than our own fighting forces overseas? The Army's response was sharp and legalistic. Strict Geneva Convention compliance, they argued, protected American POWs in German hands. It was a cold calculation. Inside the wire, another struggle simmered. Hardline Nazis in the compounds beat men who praised their captors' food. Loyalty to the Reich was non-negotiable, even over a full plate. Then the world shifted. Spring 1945. The liberation of concentration camps in Europe shocked the globe. Newsreel footage, photographs of unspeakable horror circulated. The scale of atrocity was undeniable. Simultaneously, world food supplies tightened dramatically. The abundance in American POW camps ended. It was cut, hard, deliberately. The weekly meat ration, once plentiful, largely disappeared from menus. Calorie counts plummeted. For men accustomed to gaining weight, it was a sudden shock. According to post-war accounts, some prisoners went genuinely hungry in that final year. The generous rations had an expiry date. It expired the moment the world saw what the prisoners' own regime had done. By 1946, the ships began to sail east across the Atlantic. Repatriation for German prisoners of war had begun. The men went home to a Germany devastated by years of war, a land of famine-level rations. The winters of 1946 and 1947 would be etched into memory as the hunger winters. For many, the true struggle, the deepest hunger, came not during their American captivity. It came after, back in their own country, in the ruins. Decades later, in countless interviews and memoirs, former prisoners recalled their experiences with a surprising focus. They rarely dwelled on the barbed wire fences, the daily monotony, or the isolation of camp life. Instead, their accounts kept returning repeatedly to the food, the sheer, overwhelming abundance, the tangible weight of loaded trays, that specific, soft American white bread, which many had first genuinely mistaken for cake, became shorthand for the exact moment the pervasive Nazi propaganda, with its false promise of a starving America, finally shattered. Years later, some American farm families, remembering the men they had guarded and fed, even mailed care packages, a lifeline of canned goods, and flour to their former prisoners in ruined Germany, a gesture extending far beyond wartime enmity. These men had arrived on American soil expecting brutality and profound hunger, conditioned by years of lies. They left remembering the bread they had once mistaken for cake. These stories, these quiet reversals of human expectation, must not be lost to time. Subscribe to ensure these moments of history endure. Leave a like to help the story reach others, and let us know where you are watching from in the comments below.